We have some more huge NHL signings to discuss, including a mega long-term extension for Josh Norris in Ottawa. We also have updates on Arturri, Lehkonen, several signings within Florida, St. Louis, Washington, Toronto, Arizona, Vancouver, and many more. A whole bunch of signings to talk about coming up next. So welcome back to another video here at Top Shelf Hockey. As I mentioned, we have some more pretty significant, and in a few cases, huge signings to discuss here as NHL free agent frenzy continues. Now, these are not all free agent deals. Some of these are extensions. We're going to lead things off here with the big news out of Ottawa, the summer of Pierre, as I'm calling it. Pierre Dorian's been on a real heater here lately. It was a massive extension, but a well-deserved one in my opinion, for their top center iceman, Josh Norris, who signs an 8-year contract extension. He was a pending RFA, making $7.95 million per year for a total of $63.6 million. That's a lot of dough, and I've seen a few people saying it's an overpayment online. A lot of Sens fans are also extremely happy. Some say that maybe they should have done a bridge deal. And I'm going to tell you what I think, and I'm going to give you a little bit of rebuttal on why I don't think it's an overpayment, and I don't think they should have done a bridge, and here's why. Essentially, a bridge deal would have cost them way more money later. This is a player who is entering the prime years of his career. He's 23 years old, coming out of his ELC. He just had a massive season, but you can see the gradual build-up here throughout that ELC of him showing continuous improvement. And this team in front of him that he plays on has just suddenly got a whole heck of a lot better. Now they're going to have a top six, which was last year consisted of, obviously, he and Tkachuk and Batherson played a lot together. Not always. They did break them up some. And then, obviously, besides that, they have Timmy Stützle, who's been playing second-line center, largely due to injuries last year, but it seems to be an awesome fit and likely where he'll be longer term. And then you're looking at, guys like even Nick Paul, Connor Brown, etc., that were getting top 6 minutes. Matthew Joseph got a little bit after the trade at the deadline. But ultimately, are those guys really top 6 offensive catalysts? Not really, right? So essentially, look at this team now. You've got Norris, Tkachuk, Batherson, Claude Giroux, Alex DeBrincat. A full year, hopefully another big step from Timmy Stützle. This is top 6 for the Senators. Just took a massive step forward. The price is not going to go down. I was on pace for over 40 goals. He suffered a significant shoulder injury. Thankfully, didn't need surgery. Missed like 15 or 16 games. Scored 35 goals in 66 games this year. If he would have been able to play a full calendar, he was on pace for 43 to 44 goals. Like, for this age, like this, and it's not like you expect his production to be the same or better considering the talent he's now surrounded by. The price would not go down. So a bridge deal, I think long term, in 2 or 3 years, whatever they would have done, he would have been making probably even more, possibly. So you want to do that to protect yourself long term. Now, I've seen a lot of a comparison online, especially more so from the Hab fan base, saying they feel it's an overpayment, comparing this contract to Nick Suzuki's contract. Of course, Nick Suzuki's contract isn't all that old. Obviously signed a little bit ago, but not terribly in the distant past here. But here's the difference. These guys are both really good centermen. They're not exactly the same kind of player, but they have some similarities to some extent. Nick Suzuki is a heck of a player. Don't get me wrong, but I do think it's fair to say that coming out of their ELCs and so far in their career, if you could compare them side by side, that Josh Norris is a little bit more offensively inclined. At this rate, Nick Suzuki has not had a 30 or 40 goal season, whereas Josh Norris just had, like I said, 35 goal season, on pace for 43 if he was able to not miss time due to injury this year. So that's something that Suzuki does not have. And if you look at their points per game in the first few years of their career, Norris does have more. He's averaging .72 points per game, whereas I believe Suzuki, when I calculated, I think it was .68. So it's not drastic. But then again, this is only slightly more money than Suzuki. So you factor in that he's put up slightly better offensive numbers. He has a 35-goal season under his belt. It explains the slight difference. I mean, they're both from the same draft, same age group. Only difference is Josh Norris went to U.S. college hockey before he made the jump to the NHL. So Suzuki does have a few more games under his belt. But it's really it. So to me, it's not an overpayment. The bridge deal was not good. This is a way of kind of hedging yourself long term. right? So you got to get them locked up long term. The price never goes down for these young, talented players. So in those cases, when they're in their early 20s, I highly recommend the long-term deal. But this is a fantastic signing for Ottawa, in my opinion. I think it's a good deal, slightly less than Brady Tkachuk, the captain. It falls in line with the other guys on the team, and it makes a ton of sense. So I think it's a great deal. Now, the Avalanche have also extended Arturri Lehkonen. Somehow this news was from last night, but I did somehow miss this one amongst the other signings. There's so many signings coming out, obviously, going through the list as I was getting caught up on videos here. Haven't talked about this one yet, but I think this is a great deal as well. 5 years at $4.5 million. This is a player who can play top six. He can be solid defensively, can play in all situations, and he obviously has a knack for scoring the big goals when it matters most in the playoffs. So this is a well-deserved contract for Lehkonen. That was a fantastic pickup at the deadline by the Avs. And certainly, I think at this point, Montreal might, even as much as they're probably thinking they should have gotten more, considering how well he's fit in and played there for the Avs. Now, a bunch of the other signings are not quite as significant, but one of the more significant ones was Dylan Strome. He signs a one-year deal to the Washington Capitals, $3.5 million. Again, this is another case of Chicago, and I've said it about Vegas earlier. Horrible asset management. I do not understand this at all. His qualifying offer was $100,000 more than this. That is it. So for a team who didn't think they could trade him and have been basically trying to for like a year, I don't understand how they couldn't have moved on from this player and at least gotten something. I don't know. I'm not suggesting it should have been a massive return, but how could they have not gotten a third-round pick for this player? I don't think teams were really that leery of giving Dylan Strome a contract somewhere around that qualifying offer amount as a pending restricted free agent. Doesn't make any sense. Instead, they don't qualify him and he walks for nothing and gets a deal in Washington for pretty much what his qualifying offer was. Completely ridiculous. He'll be reunited with Connor Brown, who of course played with the Erie Otters. I think both of those players have ambitions to eventually make it to Edmonton. I'm sure they'd love to be reunited with 97, but for right now, they'll be teammates with the Capitals. The St. Louis Blues have signed Josh Levo to a one-year, one-way deal, $750K. That might not seem significant, but he had a heck of a run in the AHL playoffs, helping the Carolina affiliate win the Calder Cup, so he deserves another chance, and we'll see what he can do in St. Louis. Rudy Balcers, who was another guy, RFA, not qualified in San Jose, he gets a one-way deal with Florida Panthers. 1 year, one-way, $750. So that's another opportunity for him to bet on himself and kind of regain a longer-term deal, hopefully the year after. The New York Rangers have signed Ryan Carpenter, another short-term deal, 1 year, one-way, $750. We've seen a lot of those today. The Capitals also retain Marcus Johansson, who comes back on a 1 year, $1.1 million deal. So Washington's been busy. They also signed Eric Gustafsson, the longtime veteran defenseman, 1 year, $800K. And they bring in Charlie Lindgren. He's essentially going to be the new backup goalie to the new starter, Darcy Kuemper. One-way deal the whole time. 3-year contract, $1.1 million. That, I'm sorry, Washington is insane. Charlie Lindgren is a 28-year-old goaltender. Now, this could prove to be really good. You never know. But I think there's a lot of risk associated with this contract. They moved on from 2 young goaltenders. I understand that they might not have put up the most fantastic numbers last year, but Samsonov and Vanacek, to me, is just as good or better as Kuemper and Lindgren. Darcy Kuemper proved with Colorado that they won the Stanley Cup without elite-level goaltending. There was cases where they won despite of him. I like Darcy Kuemper. Decent goaltender, not elite. Ilya Samsonov may not have been elite yet, but the potential is there. These are both older goaltenders that, to me, just does not scream better tandem. Charlie Lindgren has been around the NHL up and down for quite some time. Started with Montreal Canadiens, has had very limited NHL experience. He got into 5 NHL games with St. Louis last year due to injuries. Had some really good numbers. But that is it. This is a really small sample size. Now Washington's giving him a 3-year deal. This is mainly because of the lack of NHL goaltending to go around. We see this goalie carousel that's spinning around, and the goalies that keep changing teams, going for more money wherever there's more opportunity. And there's more need than there are guys with experience that are proven. So some of these inexperienced goalies like Lindgren are now getting this kind of deal. That is risky in my opinion. I don't understand Washington's need to move on from both of their young goalies. To me, I would have kept Samsonov at the 1 point. Look, he got $1.8 million from the Leafs. You couldn't give Samsonov $1.8 million. Right? You gave Lindgren $1.1. Like that, to me, I know they're tight on the cap, but That doesn't make any sense to me. I'm just not sure that Charlie Lindgren, at this point, we don't know that he's an NHL goalie. And he gets a 3-year deal. Now, if this was a 1-year deal at $1.1 million, I'd be like, okay, if the sample size proves that it was too small and it doesn't work out, all right, you tried it, it didn't work, you move on. Not a lot of risk. You can bury majority of that contract in the minors if you have to. You can maybe try to grab another goalie on waivers. But this is risky. I don't know. I don't like it. I think Capitals made a mistake here, in my opinion, moving on from both those young goalies. The Leafs have brought back Dennis Malgin from Europe. 1 year, one way, $750. Comments were to solidify their bottom 6. Seems to me they've tried this before and it didn't work out. So, I understand the need for cheap contracts with the Leafs. I get it. I don't know if they really needed to do this, but I guess we'll see. I guess there's a short-term, low-risk, be buried in the minors if need be. I don't know. We'll see. It's an odd signing, in my opinion. Arizona signs Nick Bukestad. It doesn't get re-upped in Minnesota. Gets a one-way deal, $900,000. Nico Sturm moves on from the Avalanche after he was acquired at the deadline. He goes over to the Sharks for a 3-year deal at $2 million. Had a hard time being consistent in Minnesota. Goes to the Avalanche, where he was basically an extra part, didn't even play every game. When he played 5 minutes a game, and he gets a 3-year deal at $2 million. That's another overpayment I don't understand. Decent young, he's still relatively young. I don't want to criticize that one too much, but I'm like, that just seems a little rich to me for his sample size of games and what he's done so far. But hey, it is what it is. The Canucks have signed Dakota Joshua. He gets a 2-year contract. That's a one-way deal, $825. Now, I think I've seen enough of him to think that he will be a decent bottom 6 player. Trevor Lewis re-ups in Calgary for another year, $800K. No big surprise there. He's a big Daryl Sutter guy. Fit in well, not fourth line. That makes sense. The Sabres find their backup goalie to Craig Anderson. They signed Eric Comrie, 2 years at 1.8. So he leaves Winnipeg. I don't blame him, really, to be honest. He needed 90 more minutes of playing time last year so that he would have been an RFA, and Winnipeg didn't make sure he got that. And they could have controlled that asset and signed him and kept him with the organization, and wouldn't have had to have him as a UFA. Instead, they have to sign Big Dave, Save Dave, David Riddick, who has proven that he's not Big Dave, Save Dave anymore. That's a Winnipeg Jet mistake, in my opinion. Buffalo takes advantage. I think Comrie will hopefully flourish with an opportunity to compete with Craig Anderson there. And, of course, they got Malcolm Subban as their number 3. So not a terrific tandem, but it'll hopefully do the job for them, I guess. It's we'll see. But Comrie's been a young goalie. He's in his later 20s now, but a guy's always been looking for more opportunity. Seen him play a lot in junior. Always thought he had a lot of potential, so we'll see if he can take advantage. Speaking of goalies, Nashville signs Kevin Lankinen. He leaves Chicago. He goes to the Preds on a 1-year deal at $1.5 million to be the backup there to UC Saros. Again, they had Riddick last year, so certainly not really a whole lot of difference in my opinion. Lankinen, but then again, playing in Chicago is sometimes when you're playing on a bad team, it's hard to tell what you are as a goalie. So we'll see if a better defensive team in front of him, he can do a little bit better. Noel Acciari leaves Florida, goes to St. Louis for 1 year, 1.25. Nothing too crazy about that one. Aaron Dell goes back to San Jose. This is surprising. He gets a 1-year contract in San Jose. They already have James Reimer. They already have Aiden Hill. And they already have the Kakinen, who they got from Minnesota at the trade deadline last year. There's no doubt they're moving a goalie, but where and when and how he goes, we don't know. Reimer's the best of the 3, in my opinion. He would be the guy with the most value, but I would think they'd probably want to trade Aiden Hill. I don't know, but it just seems odd. Aaron Dell's likely going to be in the Barracuda next year, be my guess. He's not an NHL goalie at this point in his career. St. Louis has signed Scott Perunovich. He gets a 1-year deal, $750. Still trying to find his way in the NHL. Winnipeg signs Kyle Capobianco, 2 years, but it's a 2-way deal, $762. And Henrik Borgstrom, also another player, goes to Washington along with Dylan Strome and the other guys we mentioned here. He goes on a 2-way deal, $750 at the NHL. So that's another big group of signings for now. There could be more. Still some big names out there. Kadri, Niederreiter, Klingberg, some interesting names that we don't know where they're heading yet, so stay tuned. There's bound to be lots more NHL action when it comes to NHL free agent frenzy, whether it be tonight, tomorrow, or the coming days ahead. And there's still lots and lots of RFAs left that are not signed, so we'll have to stay tuned for that too. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you next time.